Welcome to Rudy's Retro Intel. On today's show, we'll be talking about this Apple II Plus clone, compatible, counterfeit, I don't know. Let's find out and see what this is all about. So let's peek inside and poke around. Okay, so this computer here is a Apple II Plus clone or compatible or counterfeit. Microsoft thought it was a counterfeit and actively searched for them and had them removed with their lawyers and legal battles. This particular one is also mentioned in several of the videos regarding the confiscation from Apple. This is the TK8000PS personal computer. And as you can see, it is yellowed. It needs a good retro bright. The other thing with this unit is that the tabs are slightly different than the Apple II. These ones just kind of clip in and slides on. It doesn't really snap like the 2E, and it doesn't have any grips like the 2 Plus. So it just kind of like just sits on there. And you can put your modern stuff on there, but it's not really that wonderful for sitting stuff on because it does move. So once we take this off, we can see inside that the Apple clone or compatible, again, we don't know 100% yet. We're going to look into that. The layout is the same. It's got slots along the back, power supply here on the left, and the board layout is pretty much identical to the Apple II Plus. This one comes with 2 cards. This one here is the language card. On this language card, there's no ribbon cable that goes from the language card into the RAM chip. Usually there's a cable that goes from here into the card, and this chip is removed. But this one doesn't require one. It just plugs into slot 0 and off you go. Also, this one came with a floppy drive controller, or they call it the disk writer interface, and it's by Shamrock Computer Inc. 1982. Very simple controller unit. Needs cleaning. Obviously it's pretty dusty and so on, but this is the controller card that works. Got drive 0 and 1. 0 is your first drive, 1 is your second drive. So let's open this thing up and take a better look inside. And the case just pops off. The keyboard has like ribbon cable that plugs in. It just unplugs from the bottom here. This unit also came with RF modulator, which just plugs into the motherboard. The keyboard is I like this keyboard. It's all built into one. It doesn't have the adapter that you have to put in to interface to the computer. Here they've put a diode on this one. Looks like they've been a kind of mod or fix to this. Put that aside. Wow, it is dirty inside. It definitely needs cleaning. But let's go over it. So here we have the speaker wires. Let's pull that out for now. Typical speaker. So what have we got here? So we have character generator, your RAM chips. As you can see, there's a white line here and a 1 here. And that's where the RAM is located, just like on the actual real Apple II Plus computers. It's got the color control and the tint control, I believe this is. Yeah, I believe it's tint. Same thing, location. It's got slots 0 through 7 labeled, just like on the real Apple. Has 7 slots. It is running a 6502. It's got the Apple, let's see here, it's got the Apple original chips in it. This one is, they are look to me fairly original, although they don't say Apple. They have a UM2316 J103, 108, J101, 104, 105, and this one here. This is the F8 boot ROM. That is not the same, and that's probably one of the reasons what they changed that, so that it wouldn't infringe on the Apple rights for using all their encoded EEPROMs. But this one has been modified, so we'll boot it up to see what it looks like and what have they done here. This one's sitting on some rubber mounts, or some kind of mounts here. It's missing the board holder here. There's one in the corners here, this one and that one, but it's missing one there by the slots and one in the middle. As you see, if you're putting in cards, the board is going to start flexing. When the board starts flexing over time, eventually those traces could break. The solder for the chips could come loose. It won't make contact. All kinds of problems like that. So it's not a good idea to have this put in, but it looks like someone has been here before. Again, we have lots of rust on it here. We'll have to clean that up. And the power supply is the same connector on the Apple II. Yep, same connector. This unit has no name on it, but let's flip it over and take that out. Take a look, pop this up and look inside. Well, the power supply looks very close, if not identical, to the Apple II. One thing I do not see here is the scary reefer capacitors. The reefer capacitor would be sitting approximately here, which needs to be replaced because they get old and they start to crack. If they break, you'll have a puff of smoke and a really bad stink, and your power supply would need to be serviced. But this looks very good, looks very clean. I don't see any particular issues. The fuse looks good. So since this seems okay, let's put this back. We're going to plug this in. Ooh, I hate all this crunchy sound on this case. Okay, see how the board flexes? This is not good. Let's plug in our video and our power supply. Where is it? There we go. Plug our speaker back in. Oh, it does beep. That's a good sound. It's a good sign. I mean, let's plug in the monitor, turn on the monitor, and plug the keyboard back in and fire it up. So the unit is back together. I have more pieces. Like I said, I want to put the language card back in. That goes in slot 0. The drive this card goes into slot 6. But before I put that in, I want to show you the drives that came with the unit. This drive here is a 5 1/4 floppy drive. It looks like an Apple drive, just no Apple branding on it. So there's drive B. So let's put this in. Oops, it's like the foot's coming off. Yeah, let's put glue on that. So that is slot 1. Now this one has the little markings, little divot in here, which the cable has when it sticks out, that goes into there. If you're not sure which way it goes, the red stripe is pin 1, which goes on usually on the left side. Should be marked on the card, and this one it's not, although it does have that notch. The second drive that I have with it is this 5 1/4 inch floppy drive, but this one is different. It's a Tech FT-55A. It's a half height drive. So if you put the drives together, it's literally half the height of the other drive. interesting. The colors are close, not like the case, but they're close to each other. So let us take a look. Again, this one has a blue one, has a blue line to indicate pin 1, where the other one has a red one. Same thing. This will go into slot 0, and we shall pop this into here, which is slot 6, the boot drive. Cables can fit on the back here, and they just go down like that. And let's first make sure the drives turn. Let's put it on. Oh, here it is spinning, and we have video. It says YALE 2. So that's the first thing that we see that's different on the Apple, on this Apple II clone, is that it doesn't say the Apple II name when it boots up. It just says that other Ali, I'm not sure how you would pronounce that. But let's first put in a disk analyzer tool. This disk analyzer tool just checks your floppy drives. Let's boot up the floppies and see if the alignment is good. I'm not sure if you can see that really well. The drive is has booted up to this Data Life drive, and you can perform your tests from here. So let's move the camera over and get a better look. Okay, let's boot up the floppy diagnostics and see what happens. We're going to get off the 3.5-inch floppy drive. It's the half-height floppy drive, not 3.5-inch, sorry. All right, so we're getting to this menu, and let's pick the auto test number 5. And we want drive 1. It's going to do the radio alignment, good. Speed test, good. Disk clamping. Disk clamping is how it actually, the disk is clamped by the device. So here's a floppy, for example. It's the mechanism that holds the drive. And that's good. Read write is good. So thumbs up, we're good. Now since that's working, let's swap that out. So we know the drive is working and the unit actually powered up the software. So I have a sorted collection of diagnostic software. I'm going to run the Apple II. I'm going to run the Apple II Dealer Diagnostics. So let's see what this Apple can do. And we'll do a reboot. It's reading. Okay, we have the Apple II Diagnostics dealer service programs here. I apologize, my video isn't the greatest capture. My capture card is down, so I'm using a webcam for this. But let's do a let's do a ROM test. So, motherboard ROM test. So the ROMs is the biggest part that Apple was complaining about regarding the clones and compatible computers. So let's see what this comes up with. E0 is no errors. Now it's testing the chips that have a brand name engraved on the chip or stamped on the chip. They're all marked 1982. So the E8's good, F0, let's see what that does. While we're waiting, this is actually a good test to see on an Apple or otherwise to see what's going on. I mean, if the ROMs aren't working properly, you're going to have problems, including, if there's memory problems, you have to check that too. But there's an indication showing that, well, the computer, the CPU is working, computer in general is working. Let's do a RAM test. We'll do a quick RAM test, see how the RAM is doing on this. Now we're going to hit return to start. We watch the magic unfold. Here we go. So any bad or missing RAM chips are shown as inverse, and none of them are inversed. So looks like we're good. So to perform a summary of tests I've done, I didn't want to show them all because there's 5 different diagnostic software that I was using. So this software test, I was looking at 3 things. The ROM tests, which are basically to determine if the software does detect that the Apple does not have original ROMs. Second was the RAM test, just to see if the RAM is good on the motherboard. And the final was the peripheral identification. I wanted to see if the diagnostic software detected that the language card and the controller card were not original Apple products. So the first one we have here was the Apple Dealer Service software. Doesn't say the version number, built in 1979. It did pass the ROM test, RAM test. It does not identify what is plugged in each slot. Interesting thing to note is that while the RAM test is running, it does fill the screen up with ampersand symbols, and after a moment later it fills them with question marks. So if you have a Apple II that boots up and shows a screen of question marks and or the ampersand symbol, you know right away that there is a RAM issue. Next was the Computer Inspector by MEC version 1.0 in 1988. It did detect that it was an Apple II computer with 64K language card and controller card. No ROM tests were available on this software. Next is the Apple Cylindrical 2 by XPS Incorporated in 1982. The ROM test passed as showing as AppleSoft and did detect that the F8 was unknown. Detected the language card and the disk controller card. Next is the Apple Confidence version 0.1 1982. It did not have a ROM test. It did detect 48K on the motherboard. However, it also did the language card test. It did identify the language card and the controller card. Finally, we have the Computer Checkup version A:02 1984. The ROM test passed as showing as good, except for F8, which had the failed checksum, which is to be expected. Next was the RAM test. It passed, and the peripheral test failed. However, it does not recognize the signature of that card. So what you can do with that software is actually update the signature code in the software, telling it that this signature is now the Shamrock card, and the next time you run the test, it will detect that card. Pretty interesting for back in the day to actually have software that create basically a database of the cards you're plugging in and what they are and what they do. So from the testing, what is the conclusions? If the F8 ROM chip is replaced and it shows as the Apple II on boot up, then this computer could be called a counterfeit because the motherboard's the same, the case, the power supply, everything's pretty much identical, and I can see why Apple went after them. Since the motherboard layout is identical to the original Apple II, it cannot be called a compatible. The compatible series would be more like the laser type computers. I believe also the Dragon has a version of the Apple II where the motherboard layout is very different. So in conclusion, this computer is a clone. I've also performed some other tests. I plugged in the Disk 2 card, CPM card, Echo card, an EEPROM programmer card, mouse card, 80 column, serial parallel, the booty card, and the floppy EMU. All worked without issues. And that's all for our show for today. As you can see, this Apple II is a clone, not a compatible or a counterfeit without mods. Let me know in the comments what you think. Should we use other software to test? Should there be other cards we should be testing? And what should we do in the future? Should we mod it somehow, do a retro bright, paint the case, add some functionality or different functionality to the system that's not there? Aside from cleaning up, which I'll be doing, the keyboard and the keyboard and the case needs a good cleaning. Let me know what you think. Thanks for dropping by, and we'll see you soon.